Hey, I'm back with another video. It is 11:09 a.m. It is Thursday, June 19th, and I am making this video because, I was thinking about my script and contacting some employers today, and, I'm always dealing with this issue. I think how do I feel about this right now is that I'm really not in the right frame of mind to make phone calls, and let me explain why. The main reason is because I had told you how I feel about communicating with people, right? Because I feel as though, after what was created regarding my reputation and, the influence of the church, and then the manipulative crime thing, saying that it's the covert operation of crime, financial crime. I was exploited through the employment system, as well as people taking advantage of my Ko-fi accounts, Patreon, and even my YouTube channel has been infiltrated by people who should not have had any sort of tampering with it. Now I understand that the church played a huge role in this, right? So what this creates is, just like we talked about mind control before, it's a form of mind control, okay? It's a form of mind control that a lot of people, got involved in the public bullying of an individual, okay? And that leaves a residual effect. Even it doesn't matter if I'm, it doesn't matter if I'm innocent. I honestly believe that most people knew that I was innocent anyway, but there was a lot of evil people who were wanting to win. They wanted to play this competitions, betting on people's lives and this sort of stuff. That's illegal to do. Okay, I'm a human being. Okay, and that sort of thing was very, very disturbing to me. Okay, so like I said, when I encounter people, I'm not comfortable around people because I remember them doing what they were doing. You know what I mean? And to me, I feel as though if you're able to do something like that, I don't really feel comfortable around people. Okay, so I have to be in the mood to make phone calls. Okay, I have to literally get myself in the right frame of mind. And anything that could occur before I make this plan, can kind of deter me. Like today, I had to replenish some things in my refrigerator. Right, I had to replenish some stuff in my refrigerator. So I got up and I had to go to the store. Okay, so after I came, I went to the store. I pay attention to my frame of mind. It gives me time to think about other things while I'm walking to the store, or I might encounter something that reminds me of something else, and it deters me from my original plan. My original plan was to make contact with employers today at 10 o'clock this morning. Okay, that was my plan. And then, I started thinking about how I'm going to have to redo my list, and I could have do my list yesterday, but I started revising the scripts. Okay, why? Because I feel as though, for market research purposes, if things are better to where some of this issue is clearing up, what kind of response am I getting from either introduction, right? Like, I had created the first introduction, me talking about being a victim of human trafficking, and the other one I was thinking, okay, maybe not being so personal, because I basically listed Rex Laverne's name in the intro letter. And I'm going to be very clear about this. If you're a victim of human trafficking, do not be silent about the people who are involved in it. Okay. The reason why is because, like I was talking about the hand signals. Okay, people being abducted and things like this in airports. Okay, it's because your purpose there, and they can't cry out for help. Okay, in this community, we had leaders who were condoning the murder of another individual. Okay, and a lot of people were, what do you call it, mind controlled to thinking that this was okay, because the church obviously knows nothing about secular laws, which they're required to live by. Okay, but they were thinking in terms of their religious law. Okay, so when, just like the example of the different forms of human trafficking, like in the airports, you're in this huge airport thing. This person's walking alongside of a person who, her perp or her main trafficker, they're walking alongside of each other, and she might be saying help, help, or something. People aren't really being able to pay attention, and oftentimes even outside of the airport, there's situations where people are in the presence of their perpetrator. They might live in the same house. Okay, or she might be living in one of these side apartments that he arranged special rent or whatever. And as they're walking, he might walk to the store with her, and he might be walking really close to her. Okay, one thing perpetrators want to do is they want to have control over the target all the time. Okay, this is one of the reasons why they surveil. This is one of the reasons why they have, people in different posts to try to update and get information on this person. They want to have control over the individual. Okay, so in situations where they're in close proximity, like when a perp is in close proximity, like for example, Rex Limmer was not in close proximity to me, other than when we were in the work environment. Okay, so he used things like surveillance and used other people to spy on me, right? But in the cases where somebody is actually in the presence of their trafficker, they cannot yell for help, because if they were to do that, they would probably get beaten, or even more abuse, because they're in close proximity. He's going to teach her a lesson, or whoever lesson he has possession of. Okay, so the only chance that she has to get help is through the community, hoping that somebody is going to pay attention to hand signals. Okay, and I know that there's two different hand signals I had talked about. One is in the video called Human Targets that I'm using to introduce this particular video presentation. Okay, and it shows just one hand extra, and there's several. Okay, there's the one, the sign language one for the HT. And the reason why I showed it behind your back, because if you're walking with the person who's trying to abduct you, or who is a perpetrator or whatever, and you need to call for help, sometimes you're going to have to do it behind your back, because as you're walking, hopefully he's not paying attention. Now, just like I'm talking about this issue right now, right, there could be people who are actually the main perpetrators watching this video and starting to understand how their victims are going to get help. Okay, what I'm saying is that if you are a victim of human trafficking, you have very little resources, very little people to help you. Okay, just like it was irresponsible for the church to involve things like the Department of Human Trafficking or women's shelters. Okay, because they are not going to get the sort of assistance that they need. Okay, a church could sit there, and because they're old-fashioned and they believe that the man has some sort of dominion over a woman, okay, he could be beating her every day, and then she needs to go to a domestic shelter, and she's trying to get help, okay, but the people at the domestic shelter are told by the church that she's an outcast. She's an outcast, and therefore, because she can't take being beaten all the time, okay? Or she can't take him demeaning her all the time. So you know what? She's an outcast. Okay, we're going to start mistreating her, and they will mistreat her in the shelter. Okay, this is what I'm saying, is that this particular being ruled by religious doctrines, okay, can be very dangerous. Okay, it can be very dangerous. And like I said, there is two sets of laws if you're a religious person. Everybody here in the state of California is supposed to know, or, any other state, okay, should be very fully well engaged in the proper conduct. Okay, so because it's widely published. If you're a college student and you say you took law, then you should have known this, right? And I've already gone into this whole situation, this whole story before. But where I'm getting at is that we run into these issues where people are in need of help and they can't get the help that they need because of things like human trafficking, because of taking sides, playing bets, dehumanizing a human being. Okay, and I'm a clone, okay, but there's a lot of people who are referred to as targeted individuals, victims of human trafficking, who are not clones. They're just they could be objects of people's fixation. They could be abused by their family because the family relies on their income. Okay, which means that they're prevented from ever being able to have a family of their own, because maybe their mom might be dependent on their daughter or their son or whatever, and she only wants him to work so she can take, and that is illegal. That is illegal. Okay, it is up to a person who is over the age of 18. If they choose to provide for their families, hopefully there's a loving bond and they choose to do that. Okay, but they are not legally required to provide for their families. Okay, and see, this becomes a problem. And there's times where people have the right to live their own life independently from their families. Okay, and I understand, like I said, if you're a Christian and you are somebody who has a certain faith, okay, that means that you continue to take advice, or maybe even be under submission to your family members or your husband or your spouse for the rest of your life. That's your choice. You made that decision, okay? But legally, there's a whole different set of laws. It's like, you have the freedom to leave if you need to, is basically what I'm saying, okay? And if somebody tries to prevent you from doing that, you can make use of the law, okay? And I understand there's certain people who might be very upset by what I'm saying, okay? And I understand I'm a special case, okay? I understand Bakersfield has a very strange way of living. And you know what, I don't know what else to tell you. It's just that I'm trying my best to get my life together so I can leave. Okay. um, People are discussing the issue, the disdain for religion. Okay, and I understand that a lot of people may have never been able to articulate why they feel slighted, why they feel unhappy, why they feel so limited. And I don't want to. I'm not somebody who wants to stir the pot. Like I said, I understand. Throughout my life, I am like the walking, talking, controversial issue person. Why? Because I am a woman. I'm single. I'm a black woman. I'm somebody who is, yeah, I'm a black woman, right? I'm a black woman. I'm a black woman over the age of 40. Okay. I'm also unmarried. This sort of stuff. And so people want to be fixated on these sort of things. Okay. And I guess it is normal too. Like I said, when it comes to the workplace, there's nothing natural about the workplace. There's nothing natural about the workplace. I'm aware of this. This is one of the reasons why I do not like, a lot of the corporate thinking, because they've never studied this issue from what I'm talking about, from this perspective I'm talking about. I'm well aware there is nothing natural about the workplace. Nothing. Okay. So when odd birds such as myself come in, it's understandable, that people are going to be like, oh, she's different. Okay. But it's all in the way that you approach that. Okay. And instead of being racist, okay, and when I'm talking about racist is saying stupid stuff. Okay. Stupid stuff about your hair, about this or whatever. If, all you have to do is say good morning and that's it, and move on. Okay, I understand a lot of people were very inspired by, which I'm coming to believe are either Mormon double agents, or, yeah, people who've been inspired by that. Because I kept thinking, okay, how in the world, like remember I told you the story about when I first started working at organized sports, and I was living in Lancaster, getting ready to try, hopefully to find a apartment, like about an hour and a half. Well, actually, how far was Chatsworth from the Antelope Valley? It was quite a distance, okay? But I was looking for an apartment, and before I wanted to, make sure that this was the right job for me before I would make that leap, because I figure I will stay in Lancaster until I find an apartment, and if this environment is no good, then I'm going to just try to find a job in Lancaster, or that community, and stay there, okay? Because I can't deal with having to live and support myself with a job that's miserable. Unfortunately, I was looking for another job while I was working at organized spiders, and I couldn't find one. Okay, why? Because I was being blacklisted. People were manipulating my employment. Okay, and so a lot of women have to get out of their situations. The thing is about corporate structure is that it looks at people as commodities. It dehumanizes people. This very well could be one of the reasons why a lot of these corporate marriages get formulated. Now, I don't understand where their thinking is coming from, but I talk about in the video human targets, about, because obviously I'm going to tell you right now, if you're being a victim of human trafficking, there's chances are you're getting financially exploited, and a lot of the relationships that you get involved in are generally people who are in a state of financial struggle, right? They're hoping that you're going to solve their problems by them stealing off of you. Yes, this is one of the things that I was mentioning about my Ko-fi and my Patreon account, because perhaps maybe Ko-fi and Patreon might be Mormons themselves, and then they have the church members, and then they have this rhetoric about we're the ones, we're gonna have dominion theology, we deserve this, we're getting blessed by God, and so they feel as though I'm unentitled. Now, this is not me trying to rub it in, okay? I'm just talking about my issue and trying to explain, the mentality of certain people, okay, and how these sort of things actually start happening, okay? So these people are in collaboration. Now they committed fraud, embezzlement, whatever you want to call it. Okay. And see, this is one of the reasons why I feel as though the moral reset is important, to give people an understanding of each situation so that they understand, hey, you know what? You're a criminal. Okay, and it doesn't matter, what God you pray to or whatever. Under the guidelines of the law, you are. And if you could sit here in the court of law and say, God told me, God told me to take their money or something like that, people would probably think that you have mental illness. Okay. It's one thing, like, like what if I got the intuitive message that, God spoke to me and said that, I want you to be rich or whatever, you're deserving of being rich, I would know that if that was true, I would not be receiving my funds through illegal means. It would be through me being, applying my own efforts. Okay, in this life, we are expected to pull our own weight. It is what it is. Okay, and this is it's not just my philosophy. Okay, this is, it's the law. I mean, it's like no brainer. It's a no brainer. Okay. So sometimes, women are running from, abusive situations, and such as the case as mine. And I think this is one of the reasons why, I was so traumatized, because I'm a victim, and I was traumatized by people who, just trivialized my life, didn't seem to think it was, anything. And I understood what this was from the very beginning. This is one of the reasons why I started speaking up. And yeah, so anyway, to get to the long story short, the reason why I didn't make my video, contact customers today, is because I'm dealing with trauma. And there's a little fear there. There's fear there because, like I said, when I encounter people, all I can do is see them in a certain way. Like, I can only see you as a murderer. That's the only way I can see you as. I mean, and that's, if you understood what it's like to be tormented for 12 consecutive years. I left Murray Family Farms. Yeah, 2000, I think it was 2013. That was my last day, somewhere in January at that time period. And for 12 consecutive years, it's been this, that, that. Let me start this job, the same network, same getting bullied, or having vendors come in to spy on you. I'm going to tell you right now, this sort of stuff, stalking in the workplace, okay? That's exactly what it's called, stalking. Okay, and I've been stalked out of my jobs. I've been, bullied and everything else. Okay, my life has been a nightmare, and it's all been based on religion. All been based on religion. You know what I mean? And an orchestrated, religious plan, a religious plan that, and a communication. I'm sure if the FBI wanted to trace, all the communications, and they would find a big thread of different communications from this place to this way, this particular company, they would find these people. They wouldn't have to look hard for incriminating evidence. They really would not have to look hard for incriminating evidence. This is why I'm telling people, business owners, make sure that your company computers are, used for company reasons. Okay, and then also, if your employees are making phone calls on their personal phone, they are not supposed to be doing any of your company business on their personal phone. Okay, you keep the business and their personal stuff separately. Okay, and I understand, yes, my career is being taken seriously. Okay, and I'm dealing with a lot of mental problems right now. And yes, there is a psychological effect that a person is going to experience if they've been abused consistently over and over and over again. This is the result of me having to deal with somebody toying and trivializing my life. Okay, like I don't deserve to live, or yeah, that's basically what the message was. And so then we have a bunch of, Pete's and repeats who want to follow the main perpetrator. In this case, it was Rex Laverne, who was strongly encouraged by the church. You know what I mean? So, my gosh. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about the infiltration of my social media. Now, I got this intuitive message that the education system looks at me as a threat. Okay, this is another one of the reasons why. Also, they talk about me being my looks. Okay, I already told people about, number one, I do believe that the church is playing a huge role in just about anything that they can get their money on. Okay, anything that relates to making money, the church is in, because this is their thing. Okay, like I mentioned, I find it very hypocritical. Like, for example, and I think Miley Cyrus. I'm using Miley Cyrus as an example. Okay, Miley Cyrus is a very cute girl. I've been following her, not following her, but if I see a picture of her, I always look at her and think, oh, she's pretty. I like the way she looks. And yes, I do look at other women and admire them for what they look like or whatever. Okay, so I look at Miley Cyrus, and I would say there's certain outfits that she wears that are rather risque. Okay, and I don't judge people based on what they wear. Okay, but if I was to ask Miley what religion are you, she would probably identify as Christian. Why is it okay for her to wear these sort of outfits? It's because she is being used to make money for the church, or some sort of connection, right? So why is it okay for Miley Cyrus to wear things that I would look at as extremely provocative, but it's not okay for Maria to wear a nice outfit? We'll tell you why. Because at the root of the issue is that this is offensive to white supremacy. Okay, and they can't explain themselves, and the root of it is also has a lot to do with money. Okay, money. Miley Cyrus is a commodity to whoever is managing her career. Hopefully, she's not managed by a perp. Meaning, like, I hope she has a real official business deal. Like, when I talk about official business deals, okay, if I was somebody who was trying, I don't want anyone managing my career. I'm going to tell you that right now, okay? But there are certain people who are advisors, okay, who can sit here and say, okay, Miley, I think this is an example. I'm using Miley as an example. This is an example. I'm not saying this is fact, but they would say, Miley, I've been in this industry for a very long time, okay, and I'm taking this into consideration. Maybe if you're interested in doing this like this, I'm going to show you, like, we're going to put together your clothes and stuff like this particular video. She can get help and advice on fashion or whatever that she's doing. Okay, that's completely fine. Okay, and then some people pay for that sort of advice. Okay, and there's some sort of arrangement. But there are some people who just come out of the blue, like Rex Laverne, okay, who thinks that, hey, this is a business deal, and forget to talk to you about it being a consensual business deal. You're literally looked upon as a commodity, like you're just the product. Okay, no, it doesn't work that way. Okay, and this is the reason why Rex Laverne deserved to die. He deserved to die. Okay, like I said, I don't know about, maybe some celebrities may have legitimate business deals to where, like, they go on tour or they make a movie or whatever, and then the money gets divvied up a certain way, and it's understood that there's a paper trail. There's, like, a list of everything that they contributed or whatever, and this particular person gets their cut, and then they know what they're getting or whatever. That's a proper business deal. Okay, there are some people who are using other people's images to promote themselves, and they're not getting anything. Okay, and I do believe that this community has exploited me and it has gained benefits off of me, based off of the operation of my father. And yet these people are willing to sit here and smile in my face, knowing that I was supposed to be condemned. If I am not somebody who is worthy enough to be looked upon as holy enough for these people, but they're willing to steal from me and make money off of it. Let me tell you something. Yes, what I said about the church, I'm not taking it back. Okay, and this is not me. I did not come online right here to conjure this up. But I will also say, though, that there's a lot of things that have been left unsaid, because I can't verbally cuss Rex Laverne out. I could not take a gun and blow his brains out myself, which means I'm saying is that, not that I condone murder, but what I'm saying is there's a lot of unfinished feelings and the need to have closure. And because I've had people in a community that were complacent, okay, were cooperating with Rex Laverne, I don't feel comfortable around people who've stolen from me, who are willing to kill me. Okay, and this is the truth. Okay, and so this is what people were involved in. Okay, I'm giving you a picture of what you were involved in. So when I talk about my feelings, I'm not doing this, to be exaggerating. I'm going through a lot of different emotions. Okay, because there's no way in the world that you can deny the fact that this was some sort of exploitation, and that there's hypocrisy when it comes to the church. Okay, there's a huge hypocrisy when it comes to the church. So yes, I understand human behavior, and I understand criminal activity. Okay, and this is criminal activity. So let me see, what else am I going to say here? Okay, so yeah, I do believe, because Christians are they wanted to keep me quiet about this. Of course, Christians were very involved in the educational system. They were pumping that out, all the education system, because they have an agenda. There are certain, and I hate being political. I hate being political. I do. Okay, you know why I hate being political? I mentioned, we had a lot of, like, snotty little kids that would just love to sit here. Not just kids, even people at the workplace too. They would love to sit here and insinuate stuff to try to be controversial and start fights, or trying to force me into expressing my opinion, because they were like, oh, come on, you've got to have an opinion. You have to be political. You mean, like, you have to have an opinion. What are you, Democrat, Republican? What are you? What are you? Okay, the reason why I don't is because I already knew. Number one, that annoyed me. Okay, but I also understood that I was more informed on how people develop their opinions than these people that were trying to get me into arguments. And I knew that if I was to explain these things to people, they would immediately want to get into another argument, right? Because a lot of people would go into denial. And oftentimes, you know why people resent me so much is because some people cannot handle the truth. They cannot handle the truth, okay? Just like, the reason why people were, a lot of white people enjoy doing this is because at the root of it is there's a fear, okay? Because when you really think about the back history of who I am, okay, and the fact that I hate talking about it. Really, I'm so bored with racial issues. I am bored with racial issues, okay? Because I've like studied this issue. I've talked about this issue. Like I said, people used to talk about the Egyptians all the time when I was a kid and all this other stuff, okay? So I am burnt out on the subject of racial issues, okay? But I do know about white fragility, how fragile the ego of white people can be, okay? This is one of the reasons why, and I have to be very open about this, okay? Because at the heart of the matter is what this is, okay? This is one of the reasons why, it was okay in their mind to do this sort of thing, because what they fear is that I'm going to be more powerful than them. By default, I'm more powerful than them, okay? But I'm not somebody, unlike them and their power, I have never harmed anyone, nor has ever even, uh, um, occurred to me to do something like that. And I have been dealt so many injustices by the hands of white people. Okay. But see, white people, and when I say white people, I don't like to encompass all of them, but I know that I've experienced a lot of bullying, okay? And I was blacklisted throughout the United States, okay? And I don't think too many people stood up for me. Okay. So I understand, when it comes to white people do not have the same abilities as someone like me. They do not. Okay, and it seems as though when Hitler was around, and white supremacists in general, okay, people who were taking this issue seriously because they themselves knew that the white race did not have the kind of strength that other races have. But if you think about some of the things that they attribute themselves, that identify with the white race, even the swastika itself was something that was taken from different cultures, okay? So when it comes to white people, they do not have anything really that I fear. Now I did like or respect, meaning like or strive for. Okay. Now there are a lot of white musicians that I really, really appreciated. And so what they wanted to do is they wanted to humble me. Meaning like, who do you think you are? And what they don't understand is that I don't take them into consideration or anything. I don't take black people into consideration when I think, do, or say. You know what I mean? Or anybody for that matter. I live for myself. I'm an individualist. Okay. But yes, do I believe that the church and the educational system were involved in this because they're trying to keep me shut up? Because when people come to realize how useless they are and how it's them that is adding to the problem and their misery, then of course I become a threat to these institutions. See, I've already known that I've never been a supporter of the institution. Okay, so when I found out my mother was a celebrity, I'm like, okay, that's all institution. All institution. I was thinking, just a couple of days ago about how I realized how fake the institution is. Okay. I had mentioned that, CB Berganza was like the coolest person, right? I know this dude had played a integral role in the development of like the beat generation, like beatniks, as well as what they call hippies, right? Now, when I think about, bands of the 1960s and stuff and how we think these people are really cool, okay? But what they are, they're not really cool. They're commercial. They're commercial, okay? They're taking a concept that seems appealing, such as freedom, such as being awakened, things like, the age of Aquarius and all these other things that were really popular at the time, right? And I'm not saying that they weren't cool, because they were cool, okay? But in reality, it seems as though these people were actually prevented from living the life that they would be singing about. Okay, you know why? Because it's deceptive. Okay, it's a group of people who want to take other people's ideas, market it, right, water it down, and then it just becomes a product. So, because when you think about certain people, like certain celebrities or whatever, a lot of these people will deny, hey, I'm not a hippie, even though there's nothing wrong with being a hippie, okay? But when you think about it, they're like, oh, no, I'm not a hippie. Like, they don't even identify with that. How is it you can identify? Because a lot of people's names and faces are well associated with that movement, okay? So I'm not somebody who's ever been really impressed with, the mainstream thinking. I've never been impressed with the mainstream thinking, except for when I was a little kid. Now, when I was younger, a teenager, there would be like certain individuals that I would have a crush on. I would think, oh, he's cute, or whatever. I had their little picture on my wall. I would get from 17 magazine or whatever. That's normal, okay. But when I got to be older, I'm like, I realized that there was a lot of things that I was not cool with. Okay, because I'm all about being authentic. And so when people talk about being bohemian, that some people think, oh, bohemian is like the kind of style that you can get at Forever 21. No, bohemian is a lifestyle. Okay. And when some people think, oh yeah, I'm so boho, right? I'm so boho. It's like, no, you're not boho. You're a part of consumerism. And don't get me wrong, I see the importance of consumerism. Okay, I do. Okay, but it's like what I'm saying is that it becomes a part of the system. It becomes a part of the institution. Okay, and the institution promotes the very things that they sit here and try to kill people for, harass people for, but they will steal off you, and somehow it makes it righteous in their mind. This is a group of people that are insane. Okay, and they have been insane for years. Okay, the church to me, and I've already told you how I feel about the church. Okay, and I understand that there's no longer going to be any sort of pressure to try to make me affiliated with it. Okay, but that's just some food for thought. I do understand there's a lot of people committed suicide. I think the religious organization, as well as the educational system, which to me they're one and the same. Okay, they seem to be very one and the same. Meaning, like, the education that they allow people to absorb, okay, is very fine-tuned and edited to prevent you from questioning too much, and then also this benefits them so that it keeps you where you want to go. I was just thinking today, how can I give the people an example? Because how can I give people an example of how this works? Okay, like, for example, okay, let's just say, for example, I ended up dying, right? And then like 20 years from now, there's a movie made about me. There's a movie made about this black girl who moves into Bakersfield, right? And they'll talk about certain things about me, right? But like they don't mention the fact, like they'll make a movie, right? And they don't mention the fact that I was a Hello Kitty fan. They don't mention that part. And the reason why they don't mention that part is because the person who is writing the story about me kind of, they're an artist themselves, right? And they also kind of resent the fact that Hello Kitty was invented. I'm just making this up. Was invented before that they can actually get it, because they really want to be like the number one, like, kawaii type producer or whatever. So they just resented the fact, they actually hated the fact that I liked Hello Kitty. They never liked Hello Kitty, so they just omitted that fact, right? They don't talk about it. Okay, but when people claim to be the fan of Maria Gordon, right? And then they'll sit there and talk about how much they liked her, how she enjoyed this sort of stuff, blah 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 blah. But they never really knew that she liked Hello Kitty. Do you see how things can get omitted from, like, information systems because of people's specific preferences, and so they don't know. Okay, just like that top gets in system subject matters like psychology, law, even science. Okay, there's some Christians that will look at you like they will deny science, straight up deny science. Okay, because to deny it is what holds the thread together. Okay, so someone like me, right, being seen on YouTube widespread, that would cause too many problems. People would open up and they would realize that their education is a lie. People wouldn't like corporations anymore, if everybody saw it, and but I understand my videos are getting like widespread attention. Okay, it's getting widespread attention, and this was made a public issue. These people exploited me, and it ended up backfiring on them. That's what happened. I don't know how they were. I know that there were times where I go to stores and stuff like that. There was a time back in 2014, when I went to the bank and stuff like that, I seriously felt as though people were watching me. Okay, so all of these, like, exploitative type things, using me as some sort of a commodity, not caring about my privacy like I was a human being. Okay, because I know a lot of those Mormon women, when they go into the bathroom, I'm pretty sure they cover themselves up. They lock the door when they go in the house. They try to be quiet. They don't want people to know. It's a matter of your own personal security. These people cared nothing about mine. Okay, they don't care about you. They just straight up exploit you. And they're how do they use the logic and reason for that? Okay, oh, because of their superiority in the religion. Okay, we have dominion. We can do what we want. These people are terrorists. Okay, did you hear that, Donald Trump? Anyway, okay. So anyway, I'm getting this message about them talking about my looks and then the my rights being respected and all this other stuff. Okay, but the I mean, I'm somebody who knows too much. Okay, knows too much. But this person who knows too much, I'm not trying to strike. I'm not trying to, you know, rock the status quo. Okay, that's not what I'm doing. But the fact is that this is one of the reasons why I don't like talking about politics. Okay, because if you really, I remember in high school, people were like, Marie, you should be on the debate team and stuff like that. Because not because I was arguing about politics, but it's just a fact that, you know, I can sit here and like already prove stuff. Okay, I don't have time for people's game playing. Okay, I'm trying to find a job and I'm trying to get on with my life. And all I deal with is people who, you know, cause problems. You know, what else do I want to talk about? I'm glad my rights are respected. Now, today, I would say that was not a very productive day. Like, I'm not making my phone calls. Maybe around this afternoon, hopefully I will. I don't know. But I have to be very careful about my frame of mind, okay? A lot of people deal with, I think it's, how do you pronounce it? It is not schizophrenia, but it's like a schizotypo type disorder, okay? And sometimes those things get created because of trauma. And one of the what I'm referring to is the constantly, like, you know, getting overly nervous, wanting to you know, do things, but you can't be focused because you're getting jittery, or you're getting a little bit mentally disturbed or whatever. And I experienced that. You know why? As a result of these people. This is one of the reasons why compensation is essential when it comes to the legal system. And I was deprived that because some people are so broken, like they're so mentally, I'm a very strong person, but for the average person, they would have been mentally broken, and this is what they were hoping for. They were hoping to have me kill myself. Okay, but this being enacted on a lot of regular people, this is something that will kill them. Okay, this is something that would kill them. This was meant to do this. Okay, see, the LDS Church is now saying, oh, she's free, but they can't deny what they did either. They're like, oh, okay, your rights are respected now. See, and so you honestly expect that, you know, I'm gonna sit here and like look at these people and want to fucking be around them, be their fucking friend. You know what I mean? Like I said, like the girl that I saw over at the store a few days ago, I keep getting this message that had something to do with Elon Musk. I think she might be kind of fascinated by the fact that I might, you know, Elon Musk and I are communicating. I don't know if he sent me a text message today. I better go check, you know. But, you know, people's behavior, okay, is very odd and very strange, okay? And maybe Bakersfield never, this might be normal to the people of Bakersfield because this is all they ever know. But really, yeah, these people should be held accountable for what they've done. What else? So yeah, I understand that a lot of people are struggling right now. A lot of people are struggling because of the result of that. I think a lot of people died multiple times. Okay, like they came at me pretty hard. They came at me pretty hard. You know what I mean? And at the root of this issue is because of people who want to continue to live on the earth under a lie. They want you to believe that there's, you know, everything is attributed to white people. That scares them to death to think that somebody of another race is going to, you know, get ahead of them. When it comes to people in office and stuff like this, white people are always going to be there. Okay, I'm not dumb. Okay, I'm not sitting here trying to rock the status quo. Really, if you were to think about it, you would have more freedom and happiness if you just followed the law because it's written the way it should be anyway. I'm just saying is mind your own business, okay? And so the goal of like the moral reset is to get rid of people like my family, the dependent. You know what I mean? If you can't take care of yourself, I don't know what to tell you. That's not anyone's problem. You know what I mean? I keep getting this like message about okay, yeah, the message about Lancaster and getting an apartment and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not in the right frame of mood to talk to people right now. And that disappoints me. It does disappoint me. But like I said, you know, these people cause too many problems. Okay, and no, I do not expect a formal apology with these people of the Mormon Church as well as the people who associated with them. I would never accept their apology. You know, I mean, I'm accepting their apology to keep the peace, right? But like I said, you know, like this is a concerted effort. These people knew what they did. The only reason why they stopped is because they were caught. That's it. Okay, so I understand this. I understand this. Okay, so when people do something that drastic, this is one of the reasons why you have to set boundaries. Same thing with my family. My family, none of these people are ever going to come back to my life. Okay. And if somebody assists these people into coming back in my life, you're just as guilty too. This is one of the reasons why I have to be very, very, closed off to people, and have to be very reserved and use discretion about who I get close to. And I understand, I'm hoping that I can spend the summer with Elon Musk, meaning, that would be really cool if I could. I'm trying to arrange funds. I have everything in place. It's just that I'm a little reluctant to make those phone calls because, like I said, I'm tired of dealing with weirdos. Tired of dealing with weirdos. Okay, what else? Okay, a lot of people think that people are going to be willing to pay for my human targets. The human targets to watch by itself, okay, is $100. Okay, and it's just $100 to watch the video. Some people say, "Oh, that's a lot of money." Okay, considering the fact that I have a lot of moving costs, considering the fact that people took my a lot of the time out of my life, considering the fact that I was abused in public form, I was a part of a genocide plot and people were financially exploiting me. Yeah, I think $100 is more than reasonable. I am offering, a question and answer. What do you call it? Part of the video. You can watch the video, and then after that, I can assign, what do you call it? A schedule appointment for question and answers. Because some people might have questions about human trafficking. Okay, and the message I'm getting about something about me being Egyptian. Okay, this whole issue. Okay, so let's see what the issue is. Me being Egyptian, what? Okay, it seems as though my rights are respected. Something about me and my father, and then my perps that commit suicide, and they're humiliated, and that people are willing to actually pay more than that to do that. Now, this is the message that I'm getting. Now, I am terrified to talk to people. I'm terrified to talk to people. Okay, because it's not that it's what I feel like they can do. It's the fact that I feel as though I've dealt with, like I said, murderers for a very long time, or people with murderous intent, and I'm very uncomfortable dealing with people. I cannot see you as anything other than something twisted and sick. And like I said, that's a normal reaction. So going back to my third quarter newsletter, I am working on that. I actually put a pretty big dent in it, and I just might end up doing that the rest of the day. And if I don't make my phone calls, mainly, like I said, there's a lot stagnating me when it comes to my fear of encountering people that are associated with Mormon thinking. Okay, because they're very dangerous. And I know there was a lot of people who bullied up on me, the Mormon associate, not just Mormons, but the religious thing in general. These are the people who are propagating the religious, the education system and all this other stuff. Okay. Oh my God. Okay, you have no right to do that. When it comes to the Bakersfield community, I understand that you've been leeching off of my YouTube channel. Please stop doing that. Do not touch my things. Okay, and this is a moral issue. Really, it's my stuff. Okay. Now I do post my newsletter on I think maybe you've been like piggybacking and then denying me to have the proper amount of viewers. That's wrong. Okay, what you're trying to do is prevent me from having my viewership, from having any sort of engagement with my audience. Like, I had posted on my last newsletter, I think I don't know if I did put my contact information on that, okay? But I want to manage my own newsletter. Meaning I want to have my own communications with them. I want to work with different vendors who have unique items that want to advertise in my newsletter. That's what I want. Okay, that's mine. The Swan Song Manifesto is my last journey on earth, and it's about recording the events that go on in my life. That is so personal, and so it pisses me off that people like Diana Ross would think that's just like somebody saying, can I take credit for the stuff that you write in your diary? Huh? No, it doesn't work like that way. But it makes sense for people who are the overly dependent. Okay, and I and this sounds sad, but the thing is like to me, true knowledge is what should be acquired. Okay, I don't care about cookie cutter knowledge, and those are the people who are able to produce, the people who are willing to self sufficient, are the people who should remain on the earth. If you can't take care of yourself, then get off the earth. Get off the earth. You know what I mean? There's some people who are so pathetic. They don't have any skill. They don't have any sort of ambition. They don't have anything like that. If it were up to me, I know that California makes euthanizing people if you're terminally ill. They do offer that. I personally think if you're somebody who is just that pathetic, they should just be able to stand in line and die. I mean, what good are you? You know what I mean? If you have to sit here and piggyback off of another individual, then I don't think you're fit to live. So, and obviously someone like that cannot, operate within the guidelines of the law because all they know how to do to survive is steal. So those are the kind of people who should be out in the streets. Those are the sort of people, if euthanizing people is legal, they need to go line up and end their life. And so that's to me. I'm not in control of making euthanizing people in that capacity. I do believe euthanizing people is legal if you are terminally ill. To me, it should be just for any reason. You know, you're tired of having to be on the hamster wheel. No, I'm not going to fucking do that myself. Okay, no, I'm a fighter. I have a reason to live. Okay, but if people cannot, like people like my sisters or these fake people who are my sisters or whoever who sit there thinking it's okay to sit here and abuse other people, especially people who need money so bad that they have to sit here and exploit other people. Yes, get in line to get euthanized. Kill yourself already. Okay, so it's the people who are productive who should live on this earth. If you're not productive, get out. Okay, because there's no reason for you to be here. Anyway. Yes. Okay. A lot of people are talking about me. There's a lot of support for this whole thing about me and Elon Musk being together. Okay. That's cool. Like I said, I really would like to spend the summer with him. You know what I mean? It would also be kind of cool to spend like a few other months with him too. And see how things go. You know what I mean? But I just want to be able to enjoy certain things and get to talk to know him. And hopefully he'll open up and tell me certain things that are important to him that are going to help heal him. Okay. I mean, really, it's fun to talk to, or not really so much fun, but it is kind of fun, but it's probably very healing to be able to talk to somebody who's probably experienced the kind of things that I've experienced. Okay. Because I'm never going to have that sort of equal conversation with a lot of people. Okay. So there's certain things that I may not be comfortable telling other people, but I would be completely comfortable talking to Elon about it because he's probably dealt with it himself. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, it would be really cool to talk to someone like that. What else? There's a lot of arguing going on, and they're arguing about me being able to. Oh, okay. There are some people who don't like me who are upset about me being able to sell my presentation. Okay, as if I didn't. There's some people who are very upset about me having rights. See, and these are the kind of people that deserve to die. They just do. Okay, so whatever. What else? Yes, I am very sad today that I'm not working on my project the way I should. Okay, but like I said, there's always that issue. Okay. You know what the church was trying to do? I think I mentioned this yesterday, but they were trying to prevent me from being able to do the things that I wanted to do, whatever I want to do. See, I think with how this church operates, the dominion theology aspect of it, it's about bullying people so that they can win. Okay, so let's just say, for example, in my past life, I owned a lot of businesses. Okay, this is just an example. So since like Mormons understand all of this, they were thinking, oh, she probably has the ability to open a lot of businesses now, so let's attack her. See, I'm a little concerned about people who have the access to genealogical records. See, and seeing as how they're masters of this sort of stuff, they've done a lot of damage with it. Okay, I have the right to do those sort of things. So I have this right to have whatever businesses or whatever, or however I conducted businesses, whether that be through an employer or create my own stuff or whatever. And see, by them always feeling as though they want to have these covert operations. I do hope there's some sort of legal issue going on. I know that the whole issue with Rex Severn, the BPD was investigating it. Have they investigated the Mormon Church? I notice the Mormon Church has a big gate around their facility. I'm wondering, are they doing this to try to protect themselves? I get this message that it has something to do with my future plans, my motives. You know what I mean? They don't have to worry about that. They don't have to sit here and lock themselves into their little church. They don't have to do anything like that. I'm not going to sit here but I am a law-abiding citizen. I am not going to sit here and go on some sort of rampage and try to hurt any of these people. I would not lay a hand on them. I would not suffer the legal consequences, like 20-something years in prison or maybe life in prison, for wasting my time killing some filth. Okay, but when I see Mormons in person, I think it though. I think, you know what, you really caused me a lot of pain. So you need to make sure that you do not upset me any further. Keep your distance from me. Because if you trigger me, I might just go home and light a couple candles to get your ass out of here. Okay. Oh, okay. Now my dad's operation, of course, is still being seen on camera. And that they believe that people are going to purchase my video. Okay. I think that's fair because um, these people have monopolized things that they had no right to monopolize. They looked at me as something like, I was a burden baby. And see, I was thinking about the explanation of some of these people. Like, if you were to ask them, why would you think that you could abuse someone like this way? It's like, well, I know my brother said something about me being adopted. This is what started the whole thing, right? And see, this is a part of what I'm saying. It's like his answer would be, oh, she's adopted. She's adopted. So in other words, it's okay to abuse someone. She's not really our family, so we can abuse her. Do you understand how twisted that is? You know what I mean? And all this stuff comes from the pulpit of the Mormon church or some other church that they were filtering this information through. It's crazy. Is there something else? Okay. I think I'm going to wrap this video up, and I'm going to do what I can to get in the right frame of mind. But I do get the last message is the old perpetrators realize, of course, now that I don't want anything to do with them. Okay? After all of this time. You know what I mean? And the only reason why is because there is no denying what happened at this point. Okay? And so this is another message. Like, when people want to apologize to you, because I'm all about eliminating the riffraff. Okay, meaning like if you're not up to my standards, and there's reasons why. It has nothing to do with me being snobby. Okay, there are people that you can invite into your life, and they can ruin you. They can ruin you. There's been examples of there was one I think it was Unsolved Mysteries. Okay, this dude had the home of his family. Okay, he inherited the home of his family, and it was like one of those generational type ranches, a ranch that was in his family for years and years and years and years. He ended up marrying somebody, and she married him and exploited him for everything. Okay, no, he didn't. She didn't love him. She did not care about him. Right, but it's all because he did not notice the warning signs. Okay, all she cared about was his money. Okay, and a lot of people get married for these sort of reasons, whatever. But some people get exploited. They're just straight up exploited. Okay, and that's abuse. It's abuse. Okay, and so I do not tolerate befriending people who steal from me and constantly make up excuses that it's okay on their head to do it. Okay, because what you're dealing with is a deranged individual. Okay, most people, if most people would say that is somebody who's either mentally ill, okay, or obviously an abuser, definitely abuser. So that's what they are. And unfortunately, the Bakersville community has come to normalize this sort of behavior. Why? Because it came from the biggest institution that they respect. And this is a part of their faith. Trip out, huh? Anyway, I'm going to go now. I feel as though I said it. It got a little stuff off my chest. I'll see how the rest of the day goes. This afternoon, if I'm up to it, I will go and make some phone calls. But right now, I'm just trying to get myself together, okay? Because I have to mentally prepare to deal with a world that, has been influenced by this sort of darkness. Okay? Now, I know that there might be I might call a business, that might be a Mormon-related business, okay? You never know who you're contacting. It may not even be a Mormon. It could be just a Mormon-related, or somebody who attends the Mormon church who might feel sympathy for the Mormon church. I'm saying screw the Mormon church. I did get the intuitive message that, yes, the churches have cleared the data banks as per Trump, and they have informed their congregations of the injustice. Good. I'm very glad. Wrapping this one up. Take care. Bye-bye.